This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
All the way from the A, you listen to my favorite lesbian on BRQ.
Hey, stay locked in with your favorite lesbian on Black Radical Queer. Yeah.
Hey y'all, this is Javia Nicole, aka your favorite lesbian, and you're listening to Black Radical Queer Podcast, our stories on our own terms. Before diving into this episode, I want to take a moment to tell y'all about Black Radical Queer on Patreon. Patreon is a great way to support the podcast because those contributions help to offset the cost of making this thing happen. So production costs, editing costs, hosting fees, all of the funds from the Patreon go towards supporting that and keeping this podcast moving right on along. Also, there's perks to becoming a patron because you get early access to the episodes and you also get a discount on all BRQ merch. So it's a great way to support. I appreciate my current patrons. And if you want to become a patron, you can do so by going to patreon.com. So Patreon is patreon.com/BlackRadQueer, BLK RAD QWR. Thank you so much for listening, and let's get into this episode. Hey y'all, this is Javia Nicole. Welcome to another episode of Black Radical Queer Podcast. This episode is part of a series called QLIC, that is QLIC, and QLIC stands for Queer Love in Color. As usual, I'm going to allow my guests to introduce themselves, and then we will get into our conversation. I have, I guess you could say technically 3 guests, but really 2, because at this point, I don't know if my wife counts as a guest anymore, but I'll go ahead and let my guests take it away. So whoever, I guess, Courtney, you can go first, and then Desiree.
Hey, I'm Courtney. I am from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm an optician here. And I know Javia from way long time ago when I was modeling here in Atlanta. She was the first woman photographer I'd ever worked with.
I'm out here.
And I prefer she, her, or they pronouns is fine, or them pronouns is fine. Sorry.
All right. What about you, Desiree?
All right. Hello, everyone, listeners and friends. My name is Desiree, but y'all can call me Des. I use she and her pronouns, or they, them, as secondary. I am a Cancer sun, an Aries rising, so I got some fire in me, and Aquarius moon, if you're into astrology. I have a 6-year-old, a 16-pound emotional support animal. He's a cat, and he's the light of my life. And my Black trans and Black LGBTQ community is very important to me. I met our host here online. We are interweb friends, but I am very excited and honored to be a part of the podcast today. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. All right. Spouse, wife.
Oh. Hi guys.
Courtney B. That's it. That's all you gotta say. Hey, you back. All right. So when you all were introducing yourselves, I was just like, dang, I really don't even hadn't even thought about like how long I had known each of you. I don't even know when Des and I became connected on social media. I have no idea. I just don't know. And then I didn't realize it had been that long that Courtney and I had known each other until you said that, because I was like, oh yeah, I was in undergrad at the time. So I was at Agnes Scott because we were shooting all over that campus. So
4-7.
Right, you know, back in the olden days. But yeah, so I'm glad to have you both on. So what I wanted to talk to you all about today is the representation of queer love in media, especially between people of color. But one of the things that I wanted to, I guess, kind of start out with is, as you were growing up, were there any love stories, fairy tales, but I guess anything that kind of like revolved around love or relationship or whatever, any of those types of stories, shows, media that stood out to you or that really like resonated with you, that, I don't know, inspired you or anything like that?
Well, I wasn't out or queer identifying until I was like in high school and college. But you know, the one story or the one representation that stands out to me is of course Cleo and her girl from Set It Off. And even though I wasn't out, I definitely had an attraction to Cleo. So that was probably my earliest like understanding of like queer representation in the media. She was fine.
No lies told. No lies told.
I also didn't really come out until my early 20s. So I didn't have a whole lot of, I grew up mostly with my father, so I didn't really have a whole lot of romantic representation at all in my house, in media or otherwise. That didn't come until much later when I was actually seeking it or looking out for it. And that does include like relationships, my father's relationships in the house. There was not really a whole lot of understanding about romance or any of that actually when I was growing up.
So that means for you that you were basically like newly out when I met you.
Yes, I was.
I did not know that.
I was brand new.
Dang, didn't even know it. That's so crazy to me. And then, I mean, too, at that time, it was such a, it was just, we did a lot of I feel like very like queer-ish outings, like just being out and about in Atlanta, going to Pride and going to like areas that had like a large queer population. Like I still have pictures from us going to Pride, like being in the Piedmont area or whatever.
I remember
it's
that.
so crazy to me. But I know growing up, I really can't remember any like queer like love representations or whatever that's really stood out to me. I know there were some things that I felt like kind of had these undertones that intrigued me, but I couldn't put words to it or whatever. So for instance, like one of my favorite movies is The Color Purple. And I remember kind of seeing this interaction between Celie and Suge, but not knowing, I mean, I was really young, so I didn't have the language for like what was going on between them, but I just remember feeling like, okay, something here is different or whatever, or something here, there's something like, you know, that they're communicating or whatever that's a little different or whatever. And I hadn't even thought of Set It Off. I don't remember how old I was by the time I feel like by the time I saw Set It Off, I was like out and all that stuff. But prior to that, I really can't remember. I remember just seeing media in general and it just being very straight. And that being the representation that I saw. But as I kind of started to learn more about myself, I started realizing that like, hey, I don't really see anything besides this. I don't see anything that really, that I feel like I can relate to fully. I feel like I could relate to Black love, but I couldn't relate to like straight love, I guess. Yeah. It's the best way to describe it. I don't know. What about you?
I don't recall seeing queer love or Black queer love in media. However, I do distinctly remember like shame, or I distinctly remember like I can remember like the punishment or like my parents talking about it negatively, but I'm like, where was the media representation coming from for the conversation to even come up? Mm-hmm. And so I don't remember that part. Was it on the news? Like where were they seeing it for it to even be a conversation? And I'm sure a lot of people,
it was just wrong.
Yeah, but where is it? Like, why are they talking about? Is it right, church?
What made them bring it up?
Why was it brought up? I can't remember that part. I do my mother had a gay friend, and for some reason she brought me to the baby shower as a child, only to like tell me afterwards that's not right. But why did you bring me? I don't know. So that was interesting. conflicting things. Yeah. So yeah, but in media, like on TV shows, things like that, no, I don't remember anything.
Okay, so when you were, growing up, okay, so we already talked about like we really didn't see much, if any, representation of like queer love, queer relationships, queer couples, really queer folks in general. That was already slim. So, even prior to you kind of, I guess, coming into your queer identity, what is it that you envisioned for yourself in terms of love and romance and all that, if anything? Like, what is it that you felt like your future looked like in that area?
When I was coming into my queer identity, I had just come out of a very crazy and tumultuous relationship with a guy. And when I finally decided to kind of come out of the closet, my first introduction was the L word, which is not a great introduction. So I modeled my desire for relationships after a lot of that content and a lot of the content that came thereafter. So
interesting.
It was because I didn't know anyone else that was gay or lesbian or queer. I didn't know a whole lot of queer people. I kind of had to meet people through friends or meet people through friends who had gay friends to kind of figure it out. And so when I went searching for that media and that information and those images, that was kind of the big thing at the time.
Yeah, definitely.
Everywhere.
That definitely was the big thing when around that time that we met or whatever. I remember even watching it. It just was like, but how do you say that you kind of like modeled like relationships, or just modeled what you saw after that? How so?
Like I always, when I first started dating women, the type of women that I was looking for was women like that on the show, successful, intelligent, well-spoken women who are fashionable and all that. That's what my mind went with the being gay portion. But then when I went to my first Pride and I was meeting gay people and I saw gay people and I saw gay relationships and couples, it kind of not changed my perspective, but it showed me something different. So I guess the best way I can describe it is kind of a delusions of grandeur mindset.
Dang.
About relationships up until I finally started really dating women, and I had to learn the hard way about that. It wasn't true. That's all fake. That's television. That's not how relationships are. So obviously now I know better. But yeah.
It's like you can, all the stuff that you listed, like you can definitely have, but it's like the way that it was represented in that show was very specific and not it wasn't particularly broad. So it's like, yeah, you can, have
West Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. So, you can have like that partner or that person or whoever who is like intelligent and successful and all that kind of stuff. But like what they showed was just like a very narrow view of what that looked like.
Very Caucasian view of what that looked like.
very, very alabaster. So,
very alabaster.
So seeing that, it's like, okay, well, I definitely was like that ain't me. Like that ain't my ministry right there. I watched the show and I enjoyed the show. For the most part, I got issues with Jenny. I can't. But I didn't. It didn't represent me. I never at any point like felt like or thought that it represented me at all. I was like, this white as hell. So this ain't my black ass life.
In my mind, when I first came out, I had that thought process that this could be me. Like I could be one of these people in the future. I could have this type of relationship or this type of marriage with someone. Mm-hmm. But being a Black girl who grew up in Atlanta, in a Black community with Black gay people, it's not a realistic it wasn't a realistic representation. Mm-hmm. And I wish that I had more people around me at the time to kind of show me a broader spectrum. So it wouldn't be something that I learned much later.
Right.
And it would have been a more positive introduction into my gay 20s.
So what about for you, Desiree?
So yeah, when I was watching Set It Off and thought that Cleo was fine, I didn't understand that I was like queer or whatever, or attracted to women. And so when I was in middle school, all of my friends and homegirls had boyfriends, and I was just like, why don't I have a boyfriend? Like, nobody likes me. And then I went to high school, and I have a twin sister. And so my twin sister started dating this, well, first she started dating the stud, and I knew she was dating the stud. And I think that in my mind, I was like, well, this person is masculine. So like, maybe she's not like really, I was very remedial queer. So maybe like she's not really like a
not
lesbian.
remedial.
I was a baby queer.
That's so funny.
There were just like so many.
You're like, oh, so since she's dating a masculine person, and she's not
really a lesbian.
Like, you're not gay
not
for
really
real.
Because she's like,
okay,
technically,
but not for real. Okay.
I just had so many problematic perspectives back then.
Listen, we all.
Right.
None of us is exempt from being from some problematic stuff. Yeah.
Right. Nobody is unproblematic. But she started dating this girl, and I guess it just opened up possibilities for me. Like, well, if my sister could date a girl, I could date a girl too. And so I started like developing this crush on this. I'm not going to talk about her too much because she might listen to the podcast. But I started developing this crush on this girl. She was fine. She played like varsity basketball and varsity volleyball.
So, always the ballers.
But my sister, I guess, was really like influential in me like understanding my identity as a queer person. We live in this heterosexist society that tells us like straight is the way to be. And so I think that like outside of media influences, if I didn't have my sister there showing me that there were other ways to be, and not even just in terms of my sexuality, but just in like terms of my activism too. Like if I didn't have my sister there, I wouldn't like be the person that I am today. Shout out to my sister. So yeah, I would say that once I realized that was an option for me, the floodgates were open. And yeah, I just started dating women. I started dating trans folk, started dating men. And yeah, I guess I just really came to terms with my fluid sexuality. I think there's something else. Yeah, so my sister, when she came out and started dating women, she started dating a feminine woman, and she was a white woman, and she dated a couple of white women. And so that's not something that I saw for myself. So
I heard the inflection in the voice was like, she started doing
that.
That
wasn't really like
that's where we kind of went separate ways.
Like I made the mistake of pursuing one white person that liked me in college, and it just was not it. Like everything that I thought would go bad in dating a white person went bad in dating that white person. And so it just taught me to really go with like my instincts. Like, if the ancestors are telling you that like these types of relationships aren't right for you,
they're trying to tell you.
There's no reason to deviate from that guidance, that intuition. But when I think about relationships, and what I wanted for my future, it's a partner that's not white. It's a partner specifically and preferably that is Black.
Let's say that. Put it out there.
Yeah, okay, and women are cool, trans folks are cool. I don't really know if I see myself with a cis man in the future, but my Black trans folks and Black LGBTQ folks and community are very important to me. So that's definitely what I see in my future.
Did you say what city you're in?
Who does, right?
I'm in Buffalo.
You said you're in Buffalo?
I'm in Buffalo, New York, actually.
So, but Desiree's from you're from here, right? I mean, you're from California.
Yes.
But are you from LA or the Bay? I feel like you're from LA, right?
I am from Long Beach, which is in LA County. So, yeah.
That's down the street.
Are y'all in LA?
We're down the street. We're like up the street from Long Beach.
We're
in Compton.
Wait,
we're in
Compton.
Compton.
Oh, Compton in the building. That's
I digress. But one of the things that I want to mention, so something that I've like mentioned in previous episodes, and I've mentioned definitely throughout recording this series, is that there's this my wife got me Janet Mock's book like years ago for like a Valentine's Day. Like she did this like Black Girl Magic Valentine's Day type thing. So she got me like Janet Mock's book, Misty Copeland's book, which were both fantastic. Highly recommend. And then just some cool stuff, whatever. But one of the things that stood out to me from that book, that like this was years ago. I mean, this was probably, I don't even remember what year that was at that
2013, 2014.
Yeah, because we had just moved together. So this was years ago, like 2013. But what stood out for me reading that book is Janet Mock talking about this idea of possibility models. And she talked about basically like her growing up and just kind of like being like a young trans girl and trying to kind of like figure out possibilities for her life and have examples to look to or whatever. And so in a conversation with a friend of mine, Kieran, he was just like, you know, hey, did you see like possibilities for yourself, like as you were growing up and all kind of stuff in terms of your queer identity, your romantic identity and all of that. So I think it's interesting, Desiree, that like you had basically a possibility model that was like super close to you and your sister, which most people don't have. So it's like in the midst of, you know, a lack of representation or like, you know, a lack of seeing possibility models, at least you had one that was like really as, I mean, she's your twin. So as close to you as someone can be, which I think is, I mean, it's a really unique story, but also really dope that you were able to have that, because for folks who didn't, you know, Courtney talking about, well, basically looking to the L word as that possibility model when it really didn't suit her as a Black woman, ultimately, for, you know, like how she was going to truly navigate her relationships or whatever. So I just think that it's interesting that you were able to have that. And I was just trying to think back like on, you know, what were my possibility models, but I really can't, I definitely early on, I don't remember having any. It wasn't until later. It wasn't until later. And it wasn't until like I was already out. And it still mattered because I still want to see, you know, queer love and like queer people of color and Black queer folks, like, you know, having that romance and having those long-term relationships and stuff like that. But still, growing up, I always knew like I never envisioned myself like spending my life with a man, but I didn't have any examples to look to of like a girl or a woman like spending, you know, their life with someone who wasn't a man. So
it's funny you mentioned that because we were having a conversation the other day. I think it was something about old studs, or you know that's me. It was something about
this. She always talking about old studs. That's like, she got a whole thing about old studs.
But it was something you were like, oh, this is what you're gonna look like or something, and I was like, I've never imagined myself old, and so even when I was young, and it's very, morbid and very depressing, but I always thought I was gonna die like at 19, which is, I could not imagine life past 19 for whatever reason, and I never knew what that was about. But just like in our conversations recently, and like hearing people say like, oh, this is a wedding every little girl dreams of, like things like that, like it's finally starting to click to me that I had nothing to look forward to. You know what I mean? I had no idea what a future for me looked like, so I just couldn't imagine it. So that's along the lines of what you were saying. Like it really just clicked to me like in these past like 2 weeks that's why I was being so damn morbid. Like in the third grade, like that's over for me once I graduate high school, because
you can't see past
it. This, like, I'm not gonna get married because I can't marry a woman. I can't, I'm not gonna grow old because I've never seen an old lesbian. You know what I mean? So
no, that stuff like that really does. It's crazy because you're not the first. I know a lot of folks who have said similar things, not even just queer people, but everybody I know who has said that has been Black, about not being able to envision themselves old, or, having that like long-term relationship, but especially for queer folks, like, what do you have to look to? So it's like, I had this idea in my head of like, okay, I could kind of like see myself. It's weird. Like, the way I described it to a friend of mine was that like, I knew how I felt. So I knew that like, I've never had any doubt in my mind about like how I felt about like girls, women, whatever, as a child, girls, but now women. But I never had any doubt in my mind about like, that's what I'm attracted to. That's what I like. I had a lot of uncertainty about boys or men or guys. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about y'all. I don't know. It was like perpetual side eye. Like, y'all might, I don't know, like some of y'all nice to look at, but I don't know if I rock with you like that, honestly. But with girls, I was like, oh yes, that's my ministry right there. But what I told my friend was that, like, it's like when I would think about my future, it's like I had like a outline, like I could see the outline, like if you have a coloring book and you can see the picture is just the outline and you're supposed to color it in, but I didn't have anything to color it in with. I didn't have anything to like fully bring the picture to fruition, because I'm like, what do I have? I don't have a point of reference. And so if I don't know, like, okay, how to actually fill it in, it's just like, I have a loose idea based on how I feel, but I don't have any type of material, to work with to like fill it in. And so that's how I felt. So I could like vaguely imagine myself getting married and having a family, because I knew I wanted those things, but it couldn't fully like form. Like the idea didn't fully form. It was kind of like, it's just an outline. It's not in full color. It's not really vivid, I guess is the best way I can describe it. So that's why I just like, I don't know, I didn't have that representation, or I didn't see anything until, so it really took like getting older and just living life and meeting people and getting to know people, like what Courtney mentioned, seeing those relationships play out, is what really started to give me those models. But the thing is, it's like with straight folks, like they can look to media, and white folks too, because there's white queer representation more so than of color, but they can at least, like, yeah, you can have people in your life, but they can also look to media. And of course, media isn't the end all be all, but that representation does matter for you to have more material to work with as you envision what is possible for yourself. Yeah, you can look at the person next to you, but like there's some validation that can come through seeing it represented in media too. I feel like it can make it seem more real as a possibility, not like, oh, well, this person is an exception. This is just kind of like a rare thing, versus like, no, there are plenty of other people this is their reality as well. So that's why I always kind of wonder about what representation, if any, did people see when they were growing up, and kind of how they got to the place that they're in now with their identity and like what they want out of relationships. So you want to say something?
I was going to ask Courtney a question. Growing up in Atlanta, do you feel, because this is something I felt once I got to like maybe 7th, 8th grade, and then into high school for sure, the amount of Black lesbians and gay and lesbian kids was like so high to me. Like it almost felt like the movies with like the gay kids getting bullied, like that did not exist in my life because I was in Atlanta. Like there was so many gay kids, like the gay kids was like running shit. You know what I mean? So I wondered, did you have like that kind of experience?
Yeah,
gay gang.
I did. I can't really say that when I went to high school, I never saw gay people, because I did. I went to 3 different high schools growing up, and I saw the most queer or gay children when I went to a fully Black high school. And they were fully out, fully proud, dating, all of that. So yeah, I do remember having that experience. I wanted to say, and I just lost the thought, to you, Javia, because even though I didn't have a whole lot of representation in the media, I remember one of my first gay outings being at your house. You and your partner at the time had a potluck.
She who shall not be named. But that was actually a good time. That was a good time. A very queer, fantastic
that
time.
Was one of the best experiences I had my first time coming out. Up until then, like I hadn't had any other kind of too many other kind of experiences like that. And I think
because it was just very like it was almost like having like a family dinner. You know how like for my wife's family, I think is a great example. Not like my family doesn't do it too, they do, but my wife's family is a great example of this, like just kind of all congregating together and doing like the family meals and stuff like that. My family does it, but it's just, we're smaller. So it's like to see it on the scale of my wife's family is just kind of is awesome to me. So it's like that, but like with queer folks, you know what I'm saying? It's like everybody and that's something I used to do regularly, is like have folks come. That's something I miss doing. It's like have folks come over and we'll have dinner and just chill. But that really came out of me having these folks who their families had like, weren't really dealing with them because of their queerness, and they needed a place to be able to go to just like feel like, hey, you could just be comfortable here, you can chill, you know, have a good meal, just be surrounded by people who like care about you, who aren't judging you or whatever. So that's really what that came out of. So like I used to fairly regularly like do the little, like either a dinner or a potluck or something like that, and just have folks congregate at my house.
And it was an awesome experience. It was awesome meeting a whole lot of new people and hearing the conversation happen around me for once. That was pretty great. And I wanted to bring that because you brought something up that made me think about that, but I can't remember what it was. But, yeah.
Oh, something that you just said, wife of mine. So you mentioned about Atlanta. It's so interesting to me because when Courtney was talking about, you know, like going to school or whatever. So, I mean, I went to like 3 different high schools too. In middle school, I don't remember like as much queerness, like just out in the open. I know queer kids existed or whatever. Like I ain't saying that, but it was, everything just seemed real straight. Like boys was dating girls or whatever, you know. I do remember this girl who actually was out as bisexual in middle school, and who like I ended up seeing later on. It's just funny, but she was one I ended up running into at the strip club. Who was like Javia. So that's a whole other story. But yeah, but I remember she was out, and she was like the only person I knew that was out at that time. But when I got to high school, I mean, even just going from 8th grade to 9th grade, it was just totally different. So then I started to see what you mentioned about, it was like plenty of Black gay kids. And that was like also the school I went to, it was, I mean, I went to mostly Black schools, but some were more mixed than others. But this particular school was like 95% Black. And there was plenty of Black queer kids, like plenty. Mm-hmm. Not to say that they didn't deal with any type of adversity or issues or whatever, because they did. And I was one of them who ended up dealing with some stuff. But overall, it was like, the numbers were not small. And it was really from seeing that. And then I started hanging around like all the queer kids or whatever. And part of that was just because a lot of us were in the arts. So we were either in like band or chorus or, you know, that kind of stuff. And so most of the chorus was like queer as hell, like probably like 90%. So it was, prior to that, I had never really even thought about this idea of being like gay. Like, not like I didn't know it existed, but I don't know, I hadn't made the connection. Like I knew how I felt, but I still hadn't quite made the connection to myself, like of me being gay. I don't know. There was some kind of disconnect going on there. Until being surrounded by Black queer kids, and one of them basically telling me that I was gay.
Yeah, somebody told me I was gay too.
Yeah, like she was just like, Javi, you're gay. And I was like, I mean, and instead of me being like, no, I ain't, or whatever, I just really paused and was like, I hadn't considered, I don't know, it just, I hadn't even thought about it. And I was just like, okay. And I didn't argue with her. I was just like, I gotta think about that. And then after that, I was just like, you're right. Like after maybe like a week later or something, I was like, you know, so-and-so, like, I think you're right. Like, it was so random. She just out of the blue, we're just talking, and she was like, Johnny, you're gay. I'm like, I really was like that emoji, the thinking emoji, like, really? I must consider this. Like, I don't know what was going on. I was pondering, like, I don't disagree. I just need to think about it or something. Like, it was ridiculous. So yeah, definitely lots of Black queer kids. And so the numbers, I think, were great enough to not see like this obscene amount of like bullying and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, they still dealt with stuff, but I think just because there were so many, folks were really like, okay, they're not really about that life to step to them for real. It was like, okay, you can talk shit, but like for real, you want to fight? Like, no, you don't really want to fight, because you're going to, you know, they're going to have the whole crew with them. So people just like take little shots every now and then. And that's what happened, at least in school for me. Outside of school was different.
You know, the jocks were sleeping with the boys on the
team. Yes.
And you know, it was just,
yeah. Oh my gosh.
It was just a lot.
When I tell y'all, a lot of things came to light okay, sometimes, I watch TV shows and stuff and they show like high school kids and they be wilding out. And I'm like, this is a lot. Like they're in high school. But then I think back to high school. And then I'm like, you know what? This ain't completely off. Like, this isn't completely off base. Like, some wild shit was happening in high school. Definitely that piece of like, these folks who are supposed to be super straight and super whatever were definitely doing some real queer stuff behind closed doors, and they were having like queer parties and all kinds of stuff. I remember this it was like a cheerleader and a football player who everybody who had supposedly been a couple like throughout high school, and they were both gay and they were just each other's cover basically, and had been all throughout high school. We went to a party, they both with their actual boobs but in school they they together, and the whole like the queer folks all knew, but nobody else knew. So folks, thought they were a couple, and they just like, I mean, they ended up like living together and everything. They were just each other's like cover for a while. I was just like, okay. So yeah, it's interesting to me.
It's interesting that when I went to the experiences I had at a Black high school were completely different from when I went to a white high school and then a mixed race high school. Because when I went to a completely white high school, none of the stuff that I saw going to a Black school happened. Like the kids and people fighting in the hallways, obviously, and fighting over spouses, or fighting because someone says you're gay and you don't want to claim like you're gay. Like, that stuff never happened when I went to a completely white high school. Most uncomfortable experience. But then when I went to a mixed race high school, which is in a very liberal town, Decatur. Yeah. When I went to
real gay.
Super gay. When I went to a relatively liberal high school, it was more so like a whispered secret, as opposed to there just being out kids. It was just
even though that's supposed to be the liberal place, and that's interesting to me.
Like, it's more so just like, oh, I think she's gay. Or someone asked me once if I was gay, because I cut all my hair off my senior year. They asked me if I was gay, and I was like, if you think so, yeah. And it was like a big deal me saying that, as opposed to where I came from, where everybody's a little bit gay. So
dang. So maybe that's where it comes from. Because I've been telling I was about to say, Courtney, I've been telling my wife, I'm like, you think everybody gay, but maybe that's where it comes from.
Everybody was gay.
For real. For real. Everybody had a little dash, even if it was like they just had a little phase or something. Hey,
you hear all the stories.
Nobody was exempt.
There was always a story. There was always a fight. There was always something. So maybe that is where it came from. But it was just a completely different experience.
And so Desiree, did you go to you went to school out here in Long Beach?
Well, I went to school in Long Beach. I went to school in Orange County. I went to school in Riverside County. I moved around a lot throughout Southern California.
Courtney just looked like, oof.
I will say that my experience was not that everybody was knowingly gay. I wish it was, but yeah, I went to a few different schools. I went to some mostly white schools, and fun racism, being called the N-word.
Dang, not fun.
Having to talk to administrators to get people expelled because people would like. I remember me and my sister were in PE, and this like stupid white boy like pretended to drive around us as if it was a drive-by shooting, and was like, "I'm gonna kill you, niggers!"
Just
and
bold.
Like, it was just
goodness,
weird. Also, like fun fact, where I lived in Riverside County was also like the hub of like a KKK group. So
wow,
that was cool. But the high school that I graduated from, yeah, it's just it was very. The high school that I graduated from was kind of segregated. So like during passing period, you would have like, you would have the black hallway, and then you would have the white hallway, and then you would have the Latino hallway. And so I had friends of all different races. So I would like walk through all of them and be like, what's up, what's up, what's up? But in terms of like gayness and people being out, my sister was out. And I remember when she first came out, people would like, it almost felt like I was a celebrity and my classmates were the paparazzi, and they would come up to me and they'd be like, Desiree, how's it feel to have a gay sister? And I'd always have this stupid ass answer. I would always say, I support my sister, but I'm not gay though, not me. Like I was in like such denial and like so in the closet. Like when my sister first came out, it's ridiculous.
Wow, you're like, I'm the straight one.
not me.
I'm the straight twin. Oh my gosh.
But I eventually came out, and the girl that I dated was popular too. So like everyone knew about us. People knew about me and my sister, but it wasn't like, I guess my school wasn't super progressive. Like my sister had helped start a Black student union and a gay student alliance, and so that brought some sort of like progression to the campus. But I wouldn't say like there was a campus climate of like inclusion. But yeah, we made it work. We survived. People bullied me for other reasons, being dark skinned.
Know that life.
But yeah, I don't think I ever experienced any like explicit or blatant anti-gay bullying when I was in high school.
I don't know. It's so interesting to me, kind of this world, like how school is very much a bubble. So you can have one experience in school and a totally different experience outside of school. And for me, that's definitely how it was. So like in school, was gay as hell. And so I dealt with like very little, issues of, people saying stuff about me being gay or whatever. Either folks were just too, I'll just say that. Either folks were like just too, I guess, like scared or just like too, like, not really about their life to say something, because I did fight. So, I mean, it wasn't really a secret. It wasn't a secret. I didn't go seeking out fights, but like from being new and coming in and like, basically, somebody had to be the person to try me and then I had to fight. And then they're like, oh, well, no, she actually fights. So maybe we should leave her alone. So people didn't really say too much. But I do remember like when I came out, there was a group of girls I used to hang with. And so one of the girls, I had briefly dated her brother in middle school. And it's so weird because he had a track record of dating girls who ended up like either being like queer or some kind of way. Like that was very interesting to me. I'm like, you got a type, like you attracting all the girls who like girls. But so we were cool. And then she had kind of like introduced me to her friends. And so I started hanging with them because when I transferred to that school. So I remember when I came out, this was like after the girl was like, you're gay. And I was like, And I thought about it. I was like, I think you're right. And so I ended up, at the time I wrote for a newspaper, like a teen newspaper, whatever, that used to go to the schools in Atlanta. And I like wrote my coming out. So I basically came out in the paper. So this is like one of the only things in school to me that was very much like, kind of like some movie shit. Like, because when I tell you I walked into like the cafeteria and everybody had them damn newspapers, I'm like, now we've been doing this paper has existed for years. I never noticed everybody reading it like that until that day when my story was in it. I was like, oh my God. And I had been writing in there. So that wasn't new, but like for some reason it was just that day. I'm just like, God damn, this paper is everywhere. Like, I don't really know how to respond to this. So for the most part, folks were, like didn't really say much, or they were just whispering or whatever. But this one girl, who was part of the little crew, she told the mutual friend, because like I was closer to her than I was to the other girls, but she told her like, I don't know if Javi should still hang with us because I ain't with that gay shit. And so the mutual friend, like who I was close to, was just like, girl, shut up. Like, what the hell are you talking about? She was like, she not even, she ain't worried about you or whatever. And then, but she kept like, so she was really like the only person who she would keep making comments about it. She'll just be like,
to be gay?
No, she didn't turn out to be gay, but I had to hurt her feelings basically. So she was like,
was with that gay shit.
Maybe she probably was, on the low, but she was just, I ain't with the gay shit, whatever. So like we would sit down. This is stuff I was like, this is like some TV shit. Like we'll sit down at the lunch table. She would move like to not sit by me because the gay is contagious. I don't, it's like coronavirus apparently. It's just don't, it's, she got to stay at least 6 feet away to not catch the gay. So I would just be like, this bitch is so ridiculous. Like, are you kidding me? But I was just like, whatever. Or she'll be like, she would say stuff to other people like, oh, she gay, right? Yo, like it was so ridiculous. I'm just like, so then so she kept that up. That kept going for like a couple weeks or whatever. I'll just be ignoring her, and then she it was just this one day we were in line, and I was behind her like in the cafeteria line, and then she started basically like tripping out about me being behind her. Like, ain't like she had no ass anyway. So like, girl, please relax. But she was just like, so she kept saying the whole I ain't with that gay shit thing. And I was just like, listen, you're not my type. You don't have anything to worry about. Like, trust. I'm good. But then she got offended. So I'm just like, what you trying to say? Okay. So then
your daddy's
really. I'm like, you just don't do nothing for me. So you don't have to work. Like, I'm not checking for you at all. But so it's interesting to me. But that was really like the extent of kind of like any type of conflict or whatever in school, but like outside of school was a different story because in Atlanta, like there is a lot of visibility, you know, and at that time too, we were wearing hella rainbow shit. Like, I mean, I grew out of that, but at the time in high school, especially being someone who was primarily more like femme presenting too, I felt like that was more a way to like really like signal or flag, because like who gonna know? And all the gay folks used to go downtown and be congregating and trying to meet folks. So we wearing rainbow shit. So it was then, you know, being out in the larger Atlanta community that we experienced more issues and like gay bashing and all kind of stuff, like all kind of crazy stuff. So it was just a very different experience in school versus out of school. So it's like, when I think about this whole idea of possibility models, it's like in school, I really got to see like queer kids connect with each other. We got to see little relationships and stuff. People date, people do the same shit they do regardless. Like just, you know, teens being teens and doing what they do regardless of their orientation. But then being out, we did typically have kind of safety in numbers, but that was for a reason, because when people would be in smaller groups or by themselves, there would be some targeting. There would be people, especially riding public transit and stuff, people would make comments, people would be really aggressive, had people get violent and all that. So we got to kind of be in a bubble, but also be in the real ass world and go through things that a lot of other kids didn't necessarily have to consider. So it was just interesting to me. It's kind of like, okay, well, I see the possibility of like, we can make these connections, we can have this community with each other, but we also got to deal with shit. You know, we also got to deal with people targeting us and being violent toward us and all kind of stuff. So.
No, I was just gonna say it was interesting to me, like how much gay bashing occurred in Midtown. Like that's where gay people are. You know, mm-hmm. So
it's like people go there just to gay bash. Like, what in the world?
I got harassed by a cop at Pride. What the fuck are you here for?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the white. Well, actually, it was white Pride, regular Pride. And so they love their cops.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason.
Yeah,
cops.
It was a white Pride. That's hilarious.
Yeah, because like in Atlanta, there's like, so of course October is supposed to be like Pride, just Pride Month or whatever. It wasn't always in October actually, but Atlanta had like their Pride celebration, but then they also had Black Pride, like that was just like Black Gay Pride or whatever during Labor Day weekend. So people just started being like White Pride versus Black Pride, because it was. The regular Pride celebration was like in June, and then they moved it to October. But yeah, so folks were like, you going to Black Pride, or you gonna go to White Pride?
Yeah, I've never said White Pride, I guess, together. It's always Black Pride or Pride.
White Pride.
Only the Black people from Atlanta call it White Pride. Only people from everybody else is inclusive.
Everybody just says Pride. And when people say Pride, that's typically what they're referring to, because really, if you're not from Atlanta or connected to somebody from there, you may not even know about Black Pride.
No.
It's not that many places who have it.
Unless you're Black.
DC.
Yeah.
Black gay people know. Black gay people know.
And I think they have a Black Pride in Rochester too.
Oh, really?
Which is not too far away from me, but
I know DC, yeah, because DC was actually the first one I heard of before even Atlanta. The chocolate pride action.
No, but yeah, it's they love their cops. So I kissed I don't think she was my girlfriend at the time, but ex or whatever.
Look, she was out here.
Yeah, we were kissing at Pride, and he was threatening to arrest us.
Wow.
At
what?
Pride.
Like,
At Pride.
go away. Yeah. Why
in
you
the
here?
park. We weren't on the streets. We weren't naked. Nothing crazy. We were just kissing.
Do you know where you are? Like, they act like they always
How
act
dare
like
you
they don't know
exist?
where they are. Every Pride year, they act like they don't know what event they're
They're
at.
good for that.
They're
good
just
for
doing
that.
their job. That's their job to be violent.
they're like, my job is to harass you, Black person. That's my job. I'm just upholding the American way of life or some bullshit like that. Yeah, and it be those. It'd be even Black cops, the cops are cops. So
hop right off the float and go arrest and harass people.
Right, like we gotta stop the float. Pause. I gotta go. Maybe just point out into the crowd. You all right? Yeah, we don't even get into that. Someone who you're here to protect.
And he was like, does your mom know you're here? First of all, I was an adult.
Excuse you.
So I was like, I'm 18 actually, but he's like, I'll call your parents right now.
Wow.
Like,
what kind of threat? First of all, you whack ass cop being like, I'll call your parents right now.
I'll call my parents right now. How about that?
Like, insert that Waka gif where he just like, okay. Like,
yeah, he was just really trying to intimidate. First the arrest, then the parents, and he's like, I'll let you go to warning today. And I'm like, okay, what the fuck?
It's like, you really just ain't got nothing else to do. That's really a power thing. It's like, you just get off on that, on asserting this fan power or whatever, just for the hell of it.
Yeah,
get the fuck out of my
because
face.
he even watched us let us finish making out. Like, he didn't interrupt us.
He just wanted to watch.
And then when we were finished, then he like walked up to us and harassed us.
Yeah, like, you just, that's just a whole other show. Don't even get me started on them. You already know. I got all kind of issues with them boys. But yeah, so it's just what was I going to ask? Oh, so another thing that I wanted to ask for both of you, because both of you are in your own, like respective ways or whatever, very like, basically you're not like a stranger or like silent to social justice issues or anything like that. So it's like you're, vocal about where you stand and all that kind of stuff. So when you think about just the idea of social justice and activism and all that, how does that have any type of relationship to you with like love and, your relationships and stuff like that? Like, are those things connected at all for you?
I mean, I would say a short answer is absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to put myself on blast and say that recently I had like a temporary lapse in judgment because I was feeling lonely and really wanted.
I know where this is going. Ooh, I was like, you in danger, don't do it.
No, I was in danger. I did literally put myself in danger. But this person, I had posted this thing on Instagram. It was like from this like lesbian page. It was these two women kissing, and I was like, I just want this. And then this person responded to me, and she was like, I want this too. Like, is it too much to want like a silly, goofy, like supportive partner or whatever? So we just started talking. I was like, I think you're fine, by the way. And so she like texted me. We were texting, and I was like, what do you do for a living? And she was like, I don't want to say because, like, she was like, I don't want to say, especially during these times. And so I already had an idea of what her job was. I already had an idea of what her job was.
That gives it away.
And then I was like, just tell me. And she said, I'm an officer. And I was like, do you mean you're a cop?
Right. So I'm an officer. Nobody says that.
Yeah,
what the
I'm
hell?
A cop. And I was like, I am the type of person to scream fuck 12 from the rooftops. And she was like, I'm a 12 that would fuck you so good that you'll be screaming from the rooftops for getting what you said. And I was like,
wow.
Okay, I thought it was cute. I thought it was witty.
Look, I'm up here telling you like
she was like, skirt.
Right. She like, I'm about to take this, talk about her. No, you know what? That's like pitching. That's like pitching. That's exactly how that shit start out one way and it just went to talk about a curveball.
She really flipped it.
What the hell?
So I was like, she's
She a
she's
gymnast
cute or whatever. That's fun or whatever. And then I posted on Facebook and I was like, y'all, there's this cop. I like her. We literally only talked to the side
I
for
remember
3
that
days.
post. I was like, no.
Yeah, and
sorry,
everybody
no.
was like, don't do it.
I know.
Don't
Like,
say
no.
it.
You're like, shut it.
You can't
No,
do
you
it.
should not.
Run away.
No. The
No.
answer
Like
is
literally
no.
unanimously, everybody was like, no. But I continue to talk to her anyway. But I'm also somebody that has been incarcerated before. And I'm a prison abolitionist. And so if you are dating somebody that is literally working to uphold a system that you are so against, like, how does that work? Mm-hmm. And so she like didn't really understand how those things were related. If I'm somebody that believes in abolishing the police and you're a cop and you don't have any interest in like leaving your job anytime soon or at all, like that's just not gonna work. And so that definitely like, I mean, it was a primary reason why we didn't work. Right. But yeah, it is really important for me to date someone that has some sort of like understanding of social justice. I think what is really important for me is somebody that's like not transphobic. And honestly, I don't think that it's enough to just not be transphobic. Like I think you have to be active in some way. I met my last partner through like a prison abolition organization. He was a volunteer and I was someone that was getting like support from them. It's a really cute story, but I don't want to talk about it because I don't think it's sad. But yeah, I think it's super important for me to date someone that has an understanding of the way the society works, that wants to work towards abolishing certain toxic systems, somebody that like sees how colorism plays a role in like my life, you know, somebody that's not going to silence me, somebody that's not transphobic, like all of that needs to be in play. And if you're not there yet, you at least need to be working to get there. Like I understand that we're not all born woke, you know, right. But you also have to be actively like challenging yourself. And I don't have the time or patience to be teaching somebody that I'm in a relationship with, you know, to get to that level. So yeah, that's how I feel. I would much rather date somebody that's already in the movement doing the work, as opposed to somebody that I have to like help get there.
That makes sense. What about for you, Courtney?
So it wasn't always important to me. Over time, it became increasingly important. I wasn't always very vocal about how I felt about things or my views or how I viewed the world. And there were reasons for that I'm not going to really get into. But now where I am in my life, it is extremely important to me. So my partner is mixed race from Mississippi.
Oh, Lord, Mississippi.
From Mississippi.
My goodness.
And she's a bit younger than me. So when we met, a lot of the things that I felt strongly about were not things that she had ever been in the position to consider. But with me finding these things to be more and more important and me feeling strongly about them and becoming more vocal about them, there are things that we started to talk about and we started to kind of get on the same page on. And we don't agree on everything because, again, she's from Mississippi. She's mixed race. But I found that it was very important for me to kind of figure out where she stood on certain issues, especially about race, especially about sexuality, gender, things like that, because those are the things I feel the most passionate about. And we're on an even keel with those things, even though we speak about them differently. Her a little less eloquently and a little less vocal, or I don't know what's the nice way to put it. She understands where her stance is, even though she doesn't always know how to vocalize it. That's the best way I can put it.
I have a quick question for you. Is biracial, is that like the understanding that like one of the races is Black?
Her father is Black, her mother is white.
Okay.
And her mother voted for Trump.
Ooh.
So she's biracial from Mississippi. small town Mississippi, right outside where the KKK is.
So Desiree, do you mean like specifically for Courtney's partner or just in general?
In general, when people say biracial, do they mean like black and white specifically?
I
Or like is
black
always
and white
an identity that's included in biraciality?
I think that's interesting because from the way I've heard it used, when people say mixed, that could be whatever. But when people say biracial, I have only heard that used for black and white.
Okay.
I don't know if that's exclusive to it, but I've never heard anybody like who, like, for instance, like, I mean, I've dated somebody who was like black and Mexican or something. She didn't consider herself to be biracial. You know what I mean? Like, she was just like, I'm Afro-Latina. So I don't know. I've only heard it used for black and white.
Do people say mixed race when they're not black? It's weird.
No, it's people who have, I guess, at least one black, have a black parent or whatever, and they still say mixed. So I don't know. It's like, honestly, there's a lot around that I'm just like, I'm not 100% clear on, and I've kind of just like released into the universe, because there is a lot of like, I don't know. I feel like it's, in some ways, it's very, very broad. But the broadest term that I've heard used is mixed. Because pretty much anything, if you are, whether black is involved or not, but for biracial, yeah. I don't know anybody who uses that and they don't mean black and white. Even for black and another, race or whatever, I never heard that used in that way.
Yeah, I think biracial is more so binary than bi like two. I think that's how it's been used. Binary, like black, white, versus bi like two
like
races.
two, yeah. Versus other folks just say mix. And I mean, and some people say both. So some folks, they will say they're biracial and they're mixed.
Usually just say mixed race.
Yeah, but yeah, most folks I know say mixed. I don't hear biracial often, honestly, except for that cringy song, the cringy biracial girl song. Oh my god,
what song?
It's a cringy.
Look it up when you get a chance.
I'll send you a link or something. It's called Biracial Girl.
It's awful.
Who was it?
I can't remember the guy's name.
Is it by light skin Keisha? No, I don't know.
No, it's not by light skin Keisha.
It's not by Mulatto.
It's not by either of them. It's by a guy who is not famous.
He is famous.
He might be viral or something, but I don't remember his name. But yeah, he has a song called Racism, and he also has a song called Biracial Girl. He has a musical selection of cringy songs. Also. Wait, really?
Yes, he did.
What did you say?
He made one for a Latino woman?
For Latino women.
Yeah, he has one for like every race. Yeah.
He has one for.
So he don't have one called Black Girl?
Nope.
He doesn't.
Of course not.
Of course
I don't think he does. I don't believe
that.
He had like
that's racist. Racist. That's the race and the schism he was talking about. Yeah, he got a song and he's talking about race and he say schism. Like what?
We have digressed. So
I know we are off topic. Okay, we're off topic. Okay, so Desiree told us what she thought. Courtney said that basically it's become increasingly important, and basically there are like key things that you're like y'all got to be on the same page about. So what about you, wife of mine?
People who I'm dating now, is that what you're asking me?
Wow. Yeah, because you are a little thotty. I'm talking about prior to, like, just as you were getting into dating and stuff like that. Like, did you even consider, kind of like, okay, well, what's this person's views on like social issues? Is this person, was that in your thought process?
For me, I guess, I couldn't be more woke. I couldn't date someone, how do I say it? So you're probably the wokest person I've ever dated.
You guys are
you're radical, right?
Yeah,
Black radical.
I'm radical.
But before I would definitely cancel someone from my dating life if they couldn't even like bother to be kept up with current events. I remember the night that like we killed Osama bin Laden. I was with a girl and she like fell asleep and I was just so turned off. It just pissed me off so much, and that's like not even social justice or anything. It was just like
just current events.
Nothing like you just want to like be on Facebook all day, and I don't know. So I feel like what is it? I don't know. I'm like looking down my nose on people. You know?
Yeah, I was about to say, because that's a little
elitist.
Different. Yeah, because ultimately it's like, okay, in that regard, I'm like, I wouldn't necessarily have an issue with, because like for the average person, it's like, what the fuck does this got to do with my life?
But my awakening is like mostly been with you, so that's my only example. I mean, now maybe with my friend who I'm engaging with, it has been a struggle.
Can't relate. That ain't my ministry.
Wow.
But so basically in the past you're saying like you were concerned, what mattered to you is like, okay, does this person keep up with current events? So was that more so to you like some kind of marker of their intelligence?
Yes.
Okay. So what?
Not like I was like you had to be super smart or super intelligent, but like you had to be interested in the world, like on some level.
Okay. So yeah, so I get why you said leaves.
So what?
That's how I get why you said basically it's kind of like elitist or like looking your nose down on.
Yeah.
Because that does have those undertones. So what happened? So how did you transition from that?
I haven't.
Terrible.
I can't date someone that who's like all that shit is going on in the world right now, and they're like, oh yeah, there's an election this year. Oh, I didn't know that. Like they're just like so.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like, so not somebody who's just like, you know what I'm saying, totally like oblivious, but going from like, okay, hey, you know, I'm just completely done with you or whatever, to like, you talk about, this awakening. So what is that?
Oh, I'm talking about like becoming more woke on social justice issues that happened under you.
What you say like it's a presidency that happened under you? What? That those we ain't got a dictatorship
under your watch.
Right.
What
the hell?
That happened well, since
because the thing is, I don't feel like I've had, so like similar to what Desiree said about like, okay, I don't want to have to like teach, someone, all the things or whatever. I don't feel like, I've just had to like do like social justice boot camp with you or something like that.
No, I'm just saying when we got together, I was 22, and so like a lot of the shit I've learned happened when I was with you. So
yeah, and we just have different backgrounds too. So it's like a lot of stuff I just learned sooner. A lot of it out of necessity. Like it's just we grew up in different socioeconomic situations. So
I will say,
I
will say to Desiree's point, if I ever started dating again, I'm with her. I'm not willing to just teach anybody at this point. Like if you're not already there with everything that's going on and all the work that everyone around you is doing, then what are you doing?
Right. Are you just blind?
What are you here for? What are you doing?
Right. I mean, I think for me, like my nuance in that, okay, so I give the most room, nuance or whatever to basically Black women, femmes, Black marginalized genders. So that's like above everybody else. Everybody else, I'm like, okay, you're gonna have to kind of get in where you fit in. But Black women and mages, I'll just say Black mages, that's like my top priority. And so I do give the most kind of like room and grace and like, flexibility if there's like stuff that they do not know or they're not up on, because I'm like, in your regular life, you deal with so much stuff that, okay, you may not be up on what's going on in the world. You're just trying to survive. I know what it's like to be in survival mode and to not necessarily be up on, what's going on. That's real. Like, it's not like that was super long ago for me. So I understand that. So I don't look at that the same way. Like that's kind of for Black mages, they're just like in their own category. But everybody else, I'm like, okay, they don't get that. So I'm like, if you're a man, if you're a non-Black person, then I'm just like, what you doing? Like you need to be knowing something, up on something or whatever, because I'm not dealing with your foolishness. And so now at this point in time, like I'm the only people I have any degree of interest in educating are Black mages. Everybody else, I do not have the time or energy or the patience, and I don't do it anymore. I used to do it in the past, but I don't anymore.
Well, I'm not saying I don't extend them that grace. I'm saying I'm not about to date you or
No, I understand it. Yeah. I'm saying, okay, for my response.
Oh, you gonna date them?
To that? Potentially.
Oh shit. Okay. Let me know.
Shut up. So I'm saying it's not a deal breaker to me like it is with, so, you know what I'm saying? Like if it's like, okay, this is a Black woman who may not be like, you know, up on all the things versus like, let's say a Latinx woman or something like, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
I just get bored.
Black women know everything. So like, you might have a little more, you know, room or whatever. I might be like, okay, I got a little time versus everybody else. I'm like, I have absolutely no time. Like, why are you even looking at me? Like, I don't have it for you, you know? So yeah, but I mean, it's not like that's broad because like, I know myself, I don't want to have to basically be a teacher. So that probably will impact my attraction to you, but it just depends on the person. Cause I don't want to be elitist either. Like everybody don't know stuff, but just because you don't know, that don't necessarily mean I have to be the person to teach you. Or if I do have to be that person, then maybe the romantic interest won't be there. I don't know.
I understand that nuance. There's this person that I was kind of entertaining, this like Black genderqueer person, and they were cool. They were really silly. I really enjoyed their company, but there were a lot of things that they were just like, I guess, ignorant about. They didn't really understand like some trans issues. They didn't understand some feminist issues, some gender issues. And so like, sometimes when they would ask me questions, it would come off like I would perceive them as like attacking my viewpoints when in reality they were like genuinely asking questions.
They just didn't know.
But there were times where I would spend like 30 minutes at a time like explaining this like massive concept to them. I would send them articles, and then this one time I basically told them, like, they were trying to tell me the story of somebody else's business. And I was like, by the way, if it's a white person's business, I don't care to hear about it because I don't have, like,
period.
Extend compassion to white people.
Yes,
and they were like,
energy.
Are you serious, Desiree? Wow, that's so fucked up. I can't believe you think like that. And I was like,
yeah, it's over.
Yeah, and then we got into this huge argument. They called me like cold-hearted. They were like, I can't believe you would think like that. And it's just like, why? And they were like, I know you feel a certain way about light-skinned people and white people, but this girl I was talking about was light-skinned and you assumed that she was white based on her name. And it was just like all this shit that I didn't even say. All these assumptions made about what you thought was going on in my mind. I had told them time and time again when I was explaining colorism to them that like, I don't hate light-skinned people. Like, I think that colorism is a system that like, you know, impacts dark-skinned people and that we should be aware of that and calling that shit out. But it was just like, I extended so much of my energy and so much of my time to you, and then for you to like flip on me, and then like it just was not the business. So I understand, like,
I'll be so irritated. Like, as soon as they would have went down that path, I'm like, I'm not going to even argue with you. I'm just not going to deal with you because it would have just really, that would have been a major turn off.
When they're listening, they're actually taking everything you're saying and then turning it into
wait until I throw this in your face, you know, like damn.
I'm gonna turn this around and reinterpret it for a future argument.
Right.
Which is ridiculous. That's so ridiculous.
Hell no.
It's so ridiculous. I'm like, so you just gonna use, I'm like basically sharing my actual views with you, but then you're gonna try to use it against me as like fuel. I ain't got the time. So it's that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, well, you know, I want to be, and that's why I say like everybody's problematic. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody who isn't problematic. So I know that for me, that's probably one of the areas where I would be problematic in terms of how much patience and grace and stuff do I extend to this person, you know what I'm saying, to be like involved with them or whatever. It may make me elitist to some extent. And so I have to like decide for myself if I'm okay with that, you know, because you know, it's something, you know, it's like an individual thing that I will have to reconcile. Like, am I okay with the fact that, all right, Javi, you might be being a little elitist by, you know, dismissing this person or by whatever. We all, you know what I'm saying? None of us is like void of problematicness. So, yeah. But to me, I have to kind of decide for myself, like, what am I okay with kind of still be in my areas that are still being worked on, and what things am I just like, I ain't with it. So like, you know, I might be like, okay, well, that's the area I need to work on, and I might be problematic, but at the same time, I'm not about to be like transphobic. We ain't playing that. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, so I don't feel like, it's like, I do feel like there's levels to this shit. And, you know, to me, it would be worse for me to be biphobic or transphobic or something like that. So, and that could be wrong, but that's just kind of where I'm at with it. So I won't completely disregard somebody for where they are, but still, it kind of just will show me like, okay, this is kind of how I can and can't deal with you. Because I don't want to be in a position where I feel like I'm always teaching you stuff. I would like, unless it's a reciprocal thing. If I am teaching and then you're also teaching me, then that's a totally different situation. And I think that's the difference with our relationship or whatever. Because if I felt like, oh, I got to teach you all this stuff so you could be as woke as I am, that shit gets old, you know. But if I feel like, hey, we can actually have a dialogue and, you know, we can ask each other questions, or we can challenge each other, or we can, you know, both learn and grow together, that's, you know, the difference. So I may have been in a different place when we got together, but that's because my background is different. So I had to be, you know, I didn't have that.
The capability to extend that grace comes from being from the South. Because when you're Southern, you give everybody the benefit of the doubt. You extend everybody the grace to learn and kind of come to your side of things, or everybody's polite and everybody thinks they can teach other people or make other people understand when they're from the South.
I never even thought about that as like a Southern thing.
Does everybody really play there?
No. No, absolutely not.
I mean, my thing is, I never would have thought about it like that. I definitely used to be way more forgiving. Now I'm in a whole other place with forgiveness. We ain't gonna even like, I'm just like, fuck that. But yeah, it's like I guess maybe I exhausted my grace for everybody except for Black mages.
Grew it.
Yeah, I just don't have, like, for real, I just be looking at folks like, I do not, like, I don't care what you talking about, okay? Like, it's, you know, it's us against the world. That's really how I feel at this point, because that's really how it is. Like, we are all we got. And so that's really my mindset. So everybody else, I'm like, I ain't really fooling with you. I don't care.
I'm sure you all heard the news of Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing away. Yeah. Somebody said that was the worst thing to happen this year.
Really?
And I was just, and it was another black person. And I was just like,
what?
I didn't know what that person's background was. It a white woman?
It was a black person.
What?
Oh, no. It was a black woman, and I was just like, girl.
Oh no, baby, what is you doing?
What is you doing?
Oh my God.
Where you been this year?
Right. Single worst thing to happen.
You've been hibernating.
Like,
you've been hibernating, and you just came out your slumber like, oh no, Ruth.
What rock you been under?
They must have still believed in democracy and shit, girl.
Oh, okay.
That shit been dead for a long time.
Oh, you one of those. Oh, okay. Oh, that's cute.
Democracy never existed in this country.
Right. That's cute. Like, okay.
Oh, they still have hope.
Oh,
that's cute.
Yeah, that is cute. Yeah, that's real adorable. Wow. But see, that's the thing. Like that, I couldn't get that person the time of day. Like, no. I could be like, oh, you so fine. And as soon as they say that, I'm like, oh, you're not. I don't even see you the same no more.
I really want to comment and be like,
I know some folks
really
are like, if you just be quiet.
Thing? But
maybe you should.
They're in mourning, so.
That shit didn't even make me cry. Am I dead inside?
What? Okay, you on a whole other thing over here.
No, I was like, oh fuck. Yeah, all right, so.
Right.
Go ahead and get some chocolate cake. I'm hungry.
Wow. You're like, on to the next.
No, but what was I gonna say is, like, for people like us who, you know, are the woke or socially conscious, I'm allowing myself right now to have a problematic phase, right, in my friend. Okay, so this is what I'm allowing, because we started to talk a little bit of politics recently, and politics really pisses me off right now and gets me heated. And so I realized, I was like, I don't want to talk about this with you. You're supposed to be the problematic fave. As long as you're not doing like the things you were saying, the transphobia or blah, 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 the things we've listed, then you can just be over here as a little distraction, kind of like listening to Kanye from 2004. Like, allow me to have some joy without my brain frying out from like this an overwhelming amount of grief and
I mean, but then that's when you have to have boundaries and all the other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing too. So we talk about like, extending grace and like how we deal with people or whatever. It's knowing, how you can and can't deal with somebody. So, Desiree might be like, okay, I can't be romantically involved with this person because I ain't got the time. Like, I'm not going to be able to be like their educator boo. But that may not necessarily mean that, oh, well, this person can't be in my life at all whatsoever. But it's like within a specific context. And at least for me, that's definitely where I am at. I'm like, for some folks, I'm like, there are just some things that I'm like, that's not what our relationship involves. We don't talk about these things. And that's okay. Like, that doesn't make, as long as you're not, wilding out, you out here being transphobic, biphobic, xenophobic, like, just wilding or whatever, then that's different. But, so that's more so kind of like that extending grace where it's like, okay, I know I can deal with you in this context and I'm just going to leave it at that. And we will just keep it pushing. Cause, and I think that's okay. I mean, and it might still be problematic. I don't know, whatever. But I think that's just being fair to yourself and having your own boundaries about how you are and are not willing to engage with someone. Cause I'm tired. So I'm not trying to be going back and forth and do the debates and do the all that kind of stuff. Like, I've done that before and I am well past that. Like, I've done it enough to where I don't feel like I want to do that anymore in my life. So yeah, that's just where I'm at with that. Okay. So, all right. So I know that it has been quite some time since we've been on. So before I wrap up, I do want to give you all an opportunity to plug or mention, like anything that you would like or where people can find you if you are interested in them being nosy and being in your business.
Right. Well, be my business. Hello, everyone. Desiree again. But you can call me Des. If you want to follow up with me on Instagram, you can find me at Blackbird, BLAQ. The Q is for queer. BIRDDD, 3 Ds again, BLAQ, BARDDD. And I have a couple things going on. The most important one for me is the Black QT Fund, or the Redistribution Fund, for Black trans and Black LGBTQ people. It is essentially a redistribution fund or reparations fund for Black trans and Black LGBTQ people. It is open, and applications are open now. You can find more about that in a link on my Instagram bio. The initial goal for fundraising was $50,000, and we have so far surpassed $20,000. Nice. And so we're always accepting donations. We're always accepting requests. So again, if you want to get in on that, hit up the link in my bio on my Instagram. Another thing that I'm working on is this project called Blocos. It's spelled BLOQOS _. That's our Instagram handle. And it is a developing like network for Black and POC folks with mental illnesses to come together and find love or romance or friendship. I know based on my own experiences and the experiences of my loved ones that it can be difficult finding love on these dating apps or just in general when you have a mental illness. And so we're looking to like break that stigma, or what are they saying? It's not break.
That sounds right.
What's the phrase? We'll say break. Break the stigma.
Or like end the stigma or something.
End the stigma. There we go. End this, break, stop, demolish,
right.
Abolish, defund.
Defund the stigma.
Hashtag defund the stigma. And so you can head to our Instagram page. Again, it's BLOQOS _. I named it that way. The Q is for queer. And Brocos is like loco in Spanish, which means crazy, and then the B for Black. So if you're like a designer, if you're someone that has like app development ideas, if you're a queer person, a Black queer person, a queer person of color that has any ideas on what you'd like to see from a service like that, head onto our page. We would love to have your input and to have you. Thanks for having me.
All right. I will be following on Instagram. I like the name. That's dope. And I already knew about the fund. Doing the work, redistributing. Is that how you say that? Those funds.
fundraising.
What about you, Courtney?
So you can follow me on Instagram at trip_the_light_fantastic. I know it's a lot. It's just regular my Instagram. You want to see me and some pictures of me. Hopefully, eventually, I may have some writings that I can post whenever I get my mind right. I also have a group on Facebook called Atlanta Queer Arts Collective, which started out as a group for artists to share events and share their artwork and connect with other artists. It's a very small group, but I'm looking for more members if you want to join. Just come on and be very open about your work and share whatever you'd like to share. Hopefully, eventually, when I, again, get my mind right, I hope to start having events or a meetup or something like that. So yeah, follow my group page as well. And that's all I got. So.
All right. Well, I'll include the info for both of you in the show notes. And that's basically it. I don't know. Wife, you got anything? All right.
No, ma'am.
So yeah, I'll include the info in the show notes. All right. So thank you both for being on. Thank you to everyone for listening. As always, it is appreciated. If you have not done so already, make sure that you check out the BRQ Patreon. It helps to keep the podcast going because it ain't hosted for free. We gotta pay these hosting fees to get this thing out to y'all. Yeah, so that is all I got for this episode. And until next time, yeah, that's it. Bye. Black Radical Queer is a ManeHustle Media podcast hosted by Javia Nicole. BRQ is produced and edited by Charmaine Fury, and the show's theme music was created by The Brothers Records. You can connect with us on Twitter or Instagram at Black Rad Queer. That's BLK RAD QWR. You can also connect with us on Facebook through the Black Radical Queer Podcast Facebook fan page or the BRQ discussion group. You can get Black Rad Queer merch on teespring.com/Black Rad Queer, BLK RAD QWR. And you can leave a voicemail, call in, ask a question, those types of things on the BRQ Google Voice line. And that number is 937-601-8647.
ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.